If you're within 5 years of retirement, there are 6 things you need to get done before your last paycheck hits your bank account. And I'm not talking about the generic advice you've already heard, like making a budget, paying off your debt, saving more money. That stuff matters a lot. But if that's all you do, you're going to walk into retirement with a checklist and no plan. I want to talk about the 6 things that separate people who retire confidently from the people who retire and then immediately start worrying. These are the things that move the needle. It feels like the hardest part of retirement is saving enough money, but it's not. The hardest part is the 5 years right before you retire. That's when your financial decisions either lock in decades of comfort or decades of stress. And most people don't realize it until it's too late. I'm a financial planner and I work with people in this exact window every single day. The 5 years before retirement when the decisions actually matter the most. And what I've found is that the people who retire confidently don't just have more money. They've done 6 specific things that most people skip, they rush through, or they don't even know exist. Here they are. And real quick, if you're in this window within a few years of retirement and you want someone to look at your specific situation and then tell you whether you're ready or what you need to adjust, that's what I do at Riverbend. There's a link in the description to book a free discovery call. All right, here's number 1. And I know that you've heard this before, but we're going to do it a little bit different. So just stay with me. You need a retirement budget. Here's the thing. Not just one number, you need 2. We're going to call it your enough number and your more than enough number. Think of it like a floor and a ceiling. Your baseline's the floor. If you had a piece of paper, you could draw a line across, give it some space, and then draw another line at the top. That's the ceiling. Your enough number, this is your bare minimum. This is what you need to survive. Every fixed expense coming out every month, your mortgage, if you have one, car payments, health insurance, taxes, groceries, because whether you know it or not, it's important that you eat food. Then you've got your more than enough number. This is what you've been dreaming about. This is the backpacking trip through Europe, the cruise, time with your grandkids, the stuff you and your spouse talk about on those long car rides where you like to dream and talk about the bucket list. But here's what most people miss. They go into retirement with one number in their head, the total. And then when the market drops or something unexpected happens, they panic. They don't know how much room they have. So there's this sort of mix of how people respond. They either cut back on everything or they cut back on nothing because they don't know what to do. Then they lay awake at night stressed, they argue about it, or they go avoid it and they just shut down. That's not the life I want for you. But if you know your enough number, let's say it's $4,000 a month, and your more than enough number is $6,500, you've got a built-in shock absorber. For a good year, you could live at $6,500. In a bad year, you might pull back to $4,000 for a little bit. You're not guessing, you're not panicking. You've got a range and you understand what it is. Now here's what's crazy. Having that floor number actually makes you more willing to spend. Because the big problem I see isn't overspending in retirement. It's the opposite. It's the underspending. We had some clients come in, hardworking, good people. They had been diligent. They saved a good amount for retirement. But when they looked at the final number on the screen, their entire life savings, they got stressed. They thought, this could actually run out pretty quickly. They had all these dreams about things they wanted to do, places they wanted to go. They wanted to be cautious because of all the what ifs. So we built the floor and ceiling. We showed them the numbers, and then something began to shift. They started to feel a little bit of freedom. They finally decided to go and take the cruise they wanted. A week together, no chaos, intentional time to slow down. And then when we saw them again and they walked through the door, they lit up. They just needed the permission to spend the money. When you know exactly how far you can pull back if you need to, you get permission to actually live at the level you can afford. The floor and the ceiling help you feel safe. All right, number 2, and this is one that I think most people have never done, but it's eye-opening. Before you retire, it is so important you understand what your tax bracket's going to look like. And not just this year, but year by year throughout your entire retirement. This is because your tax bracket isn't just one number. It's going to move. It's going to shift as time goes. And it moves in a pattern that can be pretty predictable when you see it all laid out. So let's say you retire at 62. From 62 to 66, your taxable income is just whatever you choose to pull from your accounts. There's no paycheck, no Social Security, no required distributions. This is likely going to be the lowest your bracket is ever going to be. And then, if we go out to 67, if you choose, Social Security kicks in. So let's just say that adds $20,000 to $40,000 in income depending on your benefit. Then the bracket goes up. And then at 73 to 75, if you're born after 1960, the RMDs start. That's when the IRS forces you to pull all that money out, whether you need it or not. Then your bracket goes up again. When you see that laid out year by year, something clicks. Those early years, the 62 to 67, that's a window. That's when your bracket is the lowest, which means things like Roth conversions are cheaper, you can harvest gains at 0%, and that's when strategic withdrawals from your IRA save you the most money. But if you don't know when the window exists, well, yeah, you're going to miss it. And once Social Security and RMDs push your income up, that window is gone. You're not getting it back. So before you retire, map this out. Get a piece of paper, a sticky note, write it down on a notepad, whatever it is, a rough napkin sketch over dinner. See what your income's going to be at 63, at 67, at 73. This is going to show you things about your situation that no generic retirement advice is going to tell you. All right, number 3, you have to stress test your plan, but not the way most people think about it. When people stress test a retirement plan, they're usually asking, will my money last 30 years? They might try different inflation, return numbers, various incomes, maybe some form of a Monte Carlo. And those things are fine to do, but it's not the most important. The most important scenario is what happens in the first 2 years. Because the first 2 years of retirement are a crucial period in your entire financial life, and most people don't plan for them any differently than any other year. Here's why. It's something called sequence of returns risk. If the market drops 20% in your first year of retirement while you're pulling out money to live on, your portfolio takes a double hit. It's losing value and you're withdrawing from it at the same time. I'll explain it like this. The tale of 2 trees. Let's pretend 2 trees were planted. You took the seeds, you water them, nurture them, they get sunlight, they begin to grow. Then one day, a storm cloud rolls in and it hits one of the young trees hard. But it's young and it can't recover. And then it never fully grows into its potential. It withers. The second tree, it grows and grows into a strong, mature tree. Then when the storm comes, it's less affected. It can withstand the 60-mile-per-hour winds, unlike the young tree. When your portfolio gets hit early, it can create a hole that you never fully climb out of, even if the market recovers. A 20% drop in year 1 of a retirement is fundamentally different than a 20% drop in year 15. Because in year 1, you haven't had any time to build any cushion. You want to make sure you have a plan for these drops. Know where you're going to pull from and how much you're going to pull during those early years. You might want to have a reserve bucket, or some call it a war chest. When the dips happen, when the stress hits, have a plan. Run a worst case first 2 year scenario so you can know what to do before it happens, not after it happens. Now, if you're watching this and realizing you haven't done any of these things, that's okay. That's exactly why we're here. At Riverbend, I sit down with people in this exact window and I help them work through every one of these before they retire. There's a link in the description below to book a free discovery call. All right, let's keep going. All right, number 4, and I know this is going to sound like the soft one on the list, but don't tune me out. This one matters. You've probably heard this before, but before you retire, you need to know what you're retiring to, not just what you're retiring from. Most people can tell you exactly why they want to stop working. They're tired, they're burned out, they hit their number, they want all their time back. I get it. All of that is valid. But when I ask, okay, so what are you going to do? A lot of people get quiet. They haven't thought about it beyond, well, I want to relax or I want to travel. And here's what I think is actually going on. For years, you went to a job and that title at that job has been doing the heavy lifting. It's not just how you paid the bills, it's how you answered the question of who you are. When someone asked what you do, you had a one-word answer like engineer, teacher, consultant, builder, nurse. And that one word did a lot of work. It told people how to place you, and it told you how to place you. And then you retire, and that world's gone. But here's what I want you to hear. Your job was never who you are. It was a piece of who you are. There's so much more to what you can contribute to the world around you. You're the dad who made pancakes on Saturday morning. You're the mom who ran the carpool line for 10 years. You coach the Little League team. You're the one who serves without being asked, and you show up when no one else did. You're the mom, the sibling, the friend, the valued person in this community. That's who you are. The job was a chapter, a long one and an important one, but it was a chapter. And when you retire, you're not losing who you are. You're just losing the thing that's been loud enough to cover it up. And here's why that matters financially. People who don't realize this, who retire thinking their identity walked out the door with their last paycheck, they tend to fall in one of two patterns. They overspend, they start buying things, renovating things, filling the calendar with stuff just to stay busy. Or they underspend. They sit at home, afraid to touch their savings. They don't have anything pulling them forward. Both of these cost money. One costs directly. The other costs it in missed experiences and a retirement that feels smaller than it should. The people I work with who are happiest in retirement aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who already knew or figured out pretty quickly that they're a whole person without the job title. They've got things pulling them forward. They're volunteering. It's a hobby. It's time with the grandkids, a project they actually care about. And it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. And because they know what matters to them, their spending gets intentional. They're not buying things to fill a void. They're spending on things that actually make their life better. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Before you retire, describe what a great Tuesday looks like. Not a vacation, not some special occasion or a big event, just a regular Tuesday in your retired life. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And what gives that day meaning? If you can't answer that, you might be financially ready to retire, but you're not personally ready. And that gap will show up in your bank account one way or another. Your job was never your identity. It was a piece of who you are. Retirement gives you the rest of your life to live out all the other pieces that were there the whole time. All right, number 5, go to ssa.gov and pull your Social Security estimate. But don't just look at one number, pull it at 62, at 67, and at 70. Write all 3 of those down. Most people look at their Social Security estimate at whatever age they're planning to retire, and that's it. But that one number doesn't tell you anything useful without context. Here's what the 3 numbers look like in practice. Let's say your full retirement age benefit at 67 is $2,500 a month. If you take it at 62, it's $1,750. If you wait until 70, it grows to about $3,100. That's a $1,350 per month difference between taking it as early as possible and waiting as long as possible. Over 20 years, that's over $300,000. Now, I'm not saying everyone should wait until 70. The right answer depends on your health, your other income, whether you need the money to live on, and what your tax situation actually looks like. If you remember what we talked about in number 2, the year-by-year tax map, the Social Security income will push your bracket up. So when you turn it on, affects not just how much you get, but how much of it you keep after taxes. And if you're married, this gets even more important. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse keeps that higher of the 2 Social Security benefits. So if the higher earner takes the benefits early, locks in the reduced amount, that surviving spouse is stuck with the lower number for the rest of their life. Delaying the higher earner's benefit is one of the most powerful ways to protect the person who's left behind. So here's what I want you to do. Go to ssa.gov. It takes about 5 minutes to set up the account if you haven't already. Pull your estimate from 62, 67, and 70. Write all 3 numbers down. Then I want you to go back to step number 1, and I want you to write these numbers down beside your enough and your more than enough budgets. When you see your guaranteed income next to what you actually need to live, the picture's going to get a lot clearer. And if you're married, do this for both of you. All right, number 6, and this might be the most important one on the list, even though it has nothing to do with a spreadsheet. Before you sit down with a financial planner, before you run a single calculator, before you do anything else on this list, have the money conversation with your spouse. And I don't mean, hey, do we have enough money to retire? I mean the real conversation. What does retirement actually look like for each of you? Because in my experience, most couples are not on the same page about this, and they don't find out until they're already retired. One person's been managing the finances for 30 years. The other person has no idea where the accounts are, what the passwords are, or how much they actually have. One person's an extrovert. They want to go out. They want to socialize. They want to travel. They want to be on the go. The other person wants to be at home and they want to tend to their garden and nurture their plants. One person is emotionally ready to stop working. The other person's identity is still very much wrapped up into their career. These are not small differences. And when they surface after retirement instead of before, they turn into conflicts instead of conversations. I've seen couples who had more than enough money to retire comfortably. They just could not actually enjoy it because they never talked about what they wanted. If you're single, this conversation is with yourself, and it requires the same honesty. Do you actually want to travel, or do you just think that's what you want to do because people do that in retirement? Are you holding on to the house because you love it, or because letting go feels scary? And are you planning to spend less because you need to, or because you're afraid to spend what you have? The more honest you are before you retire, the better every financial decision after that becomes. So here's what I'd suggest. Sit down with your spouse or with yourself and answer 3 questions. What does a great retirement look like? What are you most afraid of? And what's the one thing you absolutely don't want to compromise on? Write those answers down, because when you eventually sit down with a financial planner, those 3 answers are going to tell them more about your situation than any account statement ever could. So those are the 6 things I'd want you to get done before you retire. But if you want to see what all this looks like in practice, I made a video that walks through that right here. I cover what $1 million in retirement savings actually generates in monthly income when you factor in things like Social Security, taxes, and all the decisions we talked about today. We cover 2 real case studies, a married couple and a single person, both with $1 million. I'll see you there.